Raider Nation, it's mailbag time. My name is Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and all these questions are from our live show on Thursday, August 21st. So if anything new happens, don't yell at me. This is a game day mailbag, and I don't know about y'all, I'm super fired up for the Raiders and Cardinals game tonight. And if you did not already know, Jeremy Chuggs and I, we're going to be live for this game 2 hours before kickoff, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you bleed silver and black, if you're a Raiders fan, if you're not able to get out to Glendale, Arizona, there's one place to be and one place only. That is here at the Raiders Report. I expect to see you here. Let's go to Patrick B. I know Jakobi is upset at the moment. Upset, kind of more frustrated, I think is the better word to use there. He wants a contract extension. He feels like he's done everything that's needed to get that extension. But Jakobi is a top 3 wide receiver too. I don't think he's a top 3 wide receiver 2. I do think he's one of the better wide receiver 2s in the NFL, one of the most underappreciated players in the NFL, I'll say that. And not that I'm against getting a true number 1, but the only true number 1 out there that I think that you legitimately can get right now is Terry McLaurin. And Terry McLaurin's going to require some heavy draft capital, and you're going to have to pay him north of $30 million a year. It's not that I don't think that McLaurin can make us better, but if you told me, could I use that money or that asset in some way to make our defense better, I would try to make our defense better before going out and getting a number 1 receiver. Let's go to Lamont. If we get a top 10 pick this year, do we get a quarterback 1? I personally do not think that we do because I don't think that we would be in the top 10 because of Geno. I'm confident in Geno Smith. I would say that this would be more of like we need to build the defense. That's why we're in the top 10. Let's go to Born a Raiders fan. This is a wild trade. The Raiders get Parsons. Cowboys get Tyree, a 2026 first, 2027 second, or LV gets Parsons, Cowboy. All right, there's a lot of going on here. I'll say this. To me, if you want to get Micah Parsons, you got to give up 2 first-round picks. You got to basically give up a player like a Tyree Wilson. You also have to give up, like, probably a second-round pick, and you got to throw in something else. Plus, you're going to make Micah Parsons the highest-paid player in the NFL. It's not a quarterback. I think Micah is better than Trey Hendrickson, but Trey Hendrickson, to me, would be the player that makes more sense for the Raiders because we are still trying to build for the future, and we're not just an edge rusher away from being able to win a Super Bowl. Let's go to, you did it. If AOC does bad this last preseason game, do we move on from him? I guess it would be like, how bad does he look, right? Like, if he looks like an absolute disaster, I still would be surprised because the Raiders want Cam Miller to be able to develop a little bit, and AOC, again, like even if he's the quarterback 3, that's still a guy that you keep on this team. This is going to be a roster that keeps 3 quarterbacks, so I would say no, you don't move on from him. What Raider fans should really hope for, though, in all honesty, you want Aiden O'Connell to go out there and look the best he's ever looked, and then if we can flip him for a draft pick, I think that would be actually pretty good. Let's go to Michael Macias. Is there a scenario where Dylan Laube is running back 2? Dude has looked good all preseason and on special teams. I hope not. I don't think that Dylan Laube is a very good running back. I'll be honest with y'all. Like, I think that he has trouble hanging on to the football. He has looked better this preseason, but to me, RB2 is that would scare the hell out of me. Like, Ashton Genty is a great running back, but outside of Ashton Genty, you're looking at probably one of the worst running back rooms in terms of depth in the NFL. If I wanted an RB2, his name is Sincere McCormick, and it's because McCormick can run between the tackles better than Laube, better than Chris Collier, better than I think even a guy like Raheem Mostert, where if a guy like Laube ends up making the squad, it's probably to be that RB3, RB4 to help out on special teams, to help out in the passing game. That's how Laube's got to make an impact. He's got to be able to catch the football better. Let's go to Philip Quintano, who is this year's Tyreek McAllister, great third preseason game, and ends up making the team. So what's funny about this, we were literally live earlier today, and we were talking about Tyreek McAllister players. So McAllister was a roster bubble candidate. He was a UDFA. He was a dude that we didn't even know if he was going to end up making the squad. I'm looking at the Raiders roster right now, depth chart. I would say in terms of, again, UDFA, I'll go with a guy like Carter Runyon, a tight end. Maybe a Chris Collier, Sincere McCormick. Honestly, 2 names would be really interesting. Ja Joyner and Andre Carter I'll throw in there. If you need a receiver, let me go with Alex Bachman. So I like this one. Which player has the most to prove against the Arizona Cardinals? So I would say, think of this question as like a player that they're on the roster bubble or fighting for a position or, they're fighting for something. And if they have a good game, they're either going to make the roster or they're going to win that battle. I want to know from you, which player has the most to prove against the Arizona Cardinals? I'll give you my answer here in just a moment. I'm going to go with two players here. And the first name that I'm going to go with is Tommy Malott. He was drafted in the 6th round. He is not a lock to make this squad. He needs to have a good game if he wants to make this squad. I'm also going to go with linebacker Cody Lindenberg because, again, the Raiders invested in both of those players into the NFL draft, and neither guy is a lock to make this squad. So because of that, I'm going to go with those two names as the most approved for this 3rd preseason game. Let's go to Cast Joey, an absolute legend. Any truth or more info to Hondo's claim about trade of the Raiders? By the way, I would definitely make the trade. Koonce in the 2nd, maybe 1st if we can get a pick 2. No team in the NFL is going to give up a 1st-round pick, and I want to be very, very clear on that. I don't even really want to give up a 2nd. To me, it's Malcolm Koonce and a 3rd-round pick is kind of what I would be my final offer. I don't want to, again, I feel bad for saying this, but I was told by a source today that Hondo's claim is totally made up. And if Hondo was told that, I want Hondo to tell the people, right? Because if I was told that, I would also tell you the exact same thing. I'm not saying that what Hondo was told was false. I'm just saying that I think Hondo a lot of times he just says a lot of things, and I'll leave it like that. Let's go to Richard Black. What's up, Richard? Wish this regime would get off their ass and trade for Hendrickson. Crosby is down, we know. Call them the dynamic duo. I don't think it's a matter of, the Raiders and all these NFL teams not interested in Trey Hendrickson. If the Bengals are legitimately looking for a 1st-round pick and then another potential pick and then another player on top of that, the initial report was the Bengals want, imagine the price tag was Malcolm Koonce, a 1st-round pick, and then also a John Lala or something like that, whatever the hell it is. That's way too much for this Raiders team. It's way too much for any team. And I think because the asking price is so high, would you pay $100,000 for a Honda Civic? I wouldn't. That's kind of like what the asking price right now is for Trey Hendrickson. Because then again, you got to pay him $30 million a year. Micah's better than Trey. Him and Max would be crazy for years. No doubt, right? But you're also giving up your 1st-round pick this year, your 1st-round pick next season. You're also probably giving up 2 2nd-round picks on top of that. For a Raiders team that is weird, do you think we're a Super Bowl winning team? If the answer to that is yes, then sure, let's go out and get Micah Parsons. I don't think we're a Super Bowl winning team right now, and I don't think that we're a Micah Parsons away from being a Super Bowl caliber team. So because of that, as much as, yes, Micah Parsons would make the Raiders better, Micah Parsons would make every NFL team better, no doubt about it. But sometimes you got to be willing to say no to a guy, because what if you're able to go out and get multiple 1st-round picks and those players turn into, being star-studded guys? Imagine Micah Parsons we had Brock Bowers, our last 1st-round pick, and Ashton Genty was our last 1st-round pick. Would you trade Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty for Micah Parsons and have to pay him $40 million a year? Plus, let's also say Jack Besh, JPJ, Jack Besh, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers for Micah Parsons. I don't think there's a single Raiders fan that does that, because we know that we are so much more than an edge rusher away from being able to compete for a Super Bowl. So because of that, I hear you, but I think trade just makes a little bit more sense. But based on what I've been told, the Raiders aren't front runners for Trey Hendrickson. We will get into more questions here in just a moment, but today's show sponsor, again, huge shout out to Prize Picks. And Prize Picks means football is back. And I'm excited for football being back because college football is here. Super excited to be able to watch K-State and Iowa State, and the fact that regular season football action is here, Prize Picks is the place to go. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks invented flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you're trying to run your game all season long, Prize Picks. Run your game. My lineup that I have for the entire season is what you see up on screen. $20 to win, $370. And I'll tell you this, I'm feel really flipping good about it. Play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups. Real money, sports action made easy. This link is going to be available to all y'all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. Huge shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring the Raiders Report. Let's go to Lamont. Would you trade tight end 2 for a player we really need? I feel like anytime I talk about Michael Mayer right now, there is a crowd of people on Twitter that are just like, Mitch, you always talk about trading away Michael Mayer. I talk about trading Michael Mayer because it gets brought up a lot. So you got to think about that. I don't really want to move on from Mayer. I'll be very transparent and very honest with you. But if you told me the Raiders were able to get a player that is a legitimate edge rusher, a legitimate free safety, a legitimate corner, like think about the value of how you think about Mayer. If I'm able to get a player like that and the defense at one of those 3 positions, defensive tackle, you got to at least entertain that idea. So do I want to trade Michael Mayer? No. Do I think that free safety, cornerback, do I think starting free safety, cornerback, and defensive tackle and defensive end is a bigger need than our tight end too? Yes, I do. Let's go to Jalen Moss. You're next up here on the show. Name a random player you think the Raiders are trying to trade before cut day. Only because I was talking to one of our guys earlier. There was a lot of rumors today around Brian Robinson trade rumors, a lot of running back trade rumors. Part of me that wonders, is Zamir White on that list? Because, I look at the running back depth chart, and they have Zamir White listed at RB2. It would be a very smart chess playing checkers type of thing to put Zamir White at RB2 to convince everybody out there in the world that you think Zamir is the RB2, and then, they end up not keeping him because, I'll be honest, I don't give a shit whether or not they keep Zeus. Quite frankly, I don't really want to see Zeus out there on the field. He's got a fumbling issue, but to all their NFL teams out there, he was a 4th rounder from Georgia, and he can run between the tackles. Let's go to John. You're next up here on the show. Malcolm is having a hard time trusting his body right now. Do you believe that once he does, he is a 10-sack player? I think my problem with Malcolm Koonce right now is I think he can be a 10-sack player in the NFL. I just don't know if it's going to happen with the Raiders. And, for somebody that also tore their ACL, I'm not trying to sit up here and say I'm the athlete that Malcolm Koonce is, but I at least understand the mental struggle of an athlete dealing with a severe knee injury. And, I've had multiple severe knee injuries, and it's a really hard thing to be able to overcome because you second-guess yourself. And when you're in the NFL, when you're just playing at that elite level, that second guess sometimes the difference of whether or not you win or lose that rep. So based on the conversations I've had, he's doing everything right. He just doesn't have that first step yet. He doesn't have that get off. And if he's thinking about it too much, it is going to impact his play. My worry is we're paying for a player that's making $12 million this season that's not going to look like that guy. And then he's going to be healthier next offseason, and then he's going to be a lot better. The good part is maybe we get him at a discount if we keep him, though. Let's go to Jerome Stout. Why aren't we looking at Asante Samuel Jr.? We need help with corner. I mean, Asante plays on the outside, and he's also 5'10". And, Pete's got a typical dude that they're looking for, long, lanky, athletic corners. The other problem about Asante Samuel Jr. is he's got a serious neck injury. And there are a lot of teams that, based on the medical, I don't know if Asante Samuel Jr. would pass certain teams' physicals, and it's because of that neck injury. So for a guy like Pete, you got an undersized corner for his standards, plus a neck injury. You add all that up, I would say that's why Asante hasn't been called yet. Let's go to Cali Live-In, who is someone that made the team last year that won't this season. First name that comes to my mind is Amari Gaynor. I'll go with him right from the jump. Dylan Laube will be another player that I'll go with, and then give me Trey Taylor. I would say those are the first 3 names that come to my mind, and those are the first ones that I'm going to go with. I also see Thayer Munford is another one that absolutely could be thrown into that mix. So here we go. This is kind of fun. If you could pick one of these players to keep, Dylan Laube, Thayer Munford, or Amari Gaynor. All right, you got to keep one of them. Who are you going to end up keeping? Type 23 for Laube, 77 for Munford, 53 for Amari Gaynor. Boy. If I had to keep one of these guys, I know I'm thinking about it too long. Give me Amari Gaynor. And again, I value his special teams ability. Though offensive line is a need, I'm not going to keep Thayer Munford if they're going to play him at offensive tackle. Running back, Laube to me is the easiest name on that list to replace. So I'm going to go Amari Gainer because he offers you some ability to cover. And based on some of these comments, I would see Gainer and Laube seem to be the top two answers. I don't think I've seen a single 77. What up, Shane Gimble? Can Carter Runyon block? If so, Raiders should bring him strong eye, weak side formation, use him as a fullback like Marcel Reese. You know, Marcel Reese's don't grow on trees, and I don't think Carter Runyon is ready to be a Marcel Reese yet. Quite frankly, I think it's a big ask to have because he's a tight end. And a lot of times that first year for a tight end, you just got to learn how to develop as a blocker. Did he block well in college? Yes, but he was also at Townsend. I think he's probably more suited to be a receiver. If you're looking for this player, his name's probably Ian Thomas or Albert O, if that's the type of tight end you're looking for. I don't really see them doing that with a guy like Runyon. I'll also say this, that's a role that, Brock Bowers can play. Brock Bowers can line up at tight end. Brock Bowers can line up at wide receiver. Brock Bowers can also line up at H-back. It's why he's the best tight end in the National Football League. For those that do not know, I am going to be live. When? This Saturday, 2 hours before kickoff. Raiders, Cardinals. I am super excited to be able to do it. For all of y'all that are watching this live, I'm going to be out in Tucson, Arizona on Friday. If you're not watching this live, I'll be able to tell you guys about my experience out in Tucson with a bunch of Raiders fans. Make sure you pull up. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to have a hell of a time. Saturday night, we're going to be watching this thing at like midnight. As soon as midnight hits, we're going to give you guys some fun deals. We're going to be putting some beers down. It's going to be an electric experience. Make sure you pull up.